G'day everyone, AJ here for the Regeneration. Another quick word as we land back in Oz in the lead up to Regen Week, an awesome sequence of events happening in the week beginning Monday 15 September in our neck of the woods in WA. I'm so looking forward to seeing some of you amongst it, and thanks to the generous organisers of both the Regenerating Food Systems Conference, Regen WA's second major conference at Perth Stadium, and the subsequent Grounded Festival, Australia's version of the UK's Groundswell and US's Old Salt, paid subscribers on Patreon and Substack can access a 10% discount for both two-day events. That's almost $50 off your ticket to the fest, and even more off your conference registration, well eclipsing the cost of a baseline subscription. So if you're not a paid subscriber, you could join up now, help keep the show going, and get other exclusive benefits like these significant discounts to the best Regen conference and new festival in Australia. More info on the website, all linked in the show notes. Hope to see you there.
And do you know where we get all these plants? We get them by the side of the road.
Really?
Yeah.
The wild verges.
We didn't buy any of them.
Yeah. G'day, Anthony James here for the Regeneration, your independent, listener-supported podcast, exploring how people are regenerating the systems and stories we live by.
Not too close.
Yeah, you'll have something to say.
That's right. And we got top secret discussions.
It's much too young to hear this stuff.
Back on Earth Day, in April 2024, we started our journey of the Americas with friend of the podcast, legendary best-selling author, Paul Hawken. It was just ahead of the release of his latest book, Carbon, the Book of Life. So we recorded a podcast in his incredible garden about it. Later, we thought it could be good to record a pod just walking and talking around the steeply sloped streets of his local neighbourhood, among the redwoods. See what this tallest of tree species had to say too. Alas, with both our travels at the time, we didn't get to it. But having managed to return to Northern California a few weeks ago, ahead of flying back to Australia, we did, on our very last day at Paul's place. And as it happens, Paul's next book is in full flow. Working title, Upstream, Why the Climate Movement Failed and Where to from here. Given this is by the bloke who compiled best-selling volumes Drawdown and Regeneration, that seemed as good a place to start as any, after the redwoods introduce themselves. And later, after arriving at a powerful analogy for the times, we converge at the end, well, on the wisdom of Dolly Parton.
Well, mate, we're doing it.
Yeah, we're walking.
This is great.
Yeah.
I'm
glad you're in my forest.
Yeah, and I tell you, leaving this today, I'm just soaking in every smell of it, every sound of it.
Well, a redwood forest is not a typical forest in the sense that typical forests are a hotbed of life, because even non-deciduous, but lots of deciduous trees and seeds and, things for bark, insects to eat, birds to eat them, sounds of the birds. And redwood forests are unusually quiet because the bark of the redwood is inedible to any insect.
Is that right?
Yeah, and so that's why it lasts so long, right?
Huh.
It's used because it's resistant to infestation and rot, but you don't hear any birds.
No, and we were wondering why that was true.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when we were up north,
Right.
in the really big stands that are left, and it was so quiet, and we got where no people were, and
Right.
it was so quiet.
Right.
It was delicious, but it made us wonder.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful tomb.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so what made them impervious? Insects made them extremely valuable to settlers who cut almost all the redwoods down, in California. Yeah. So.
Yeah, like 95% on top.
Yeah, for housing primarily, but also for any use where it needs to be resistant to insects, rot, or water. Yeah. So we're walking by a fence right here, and it's redwood.
Yeah.
So it goes on for several hundred feet.
It's unusual. It's not a common sight to have that sort of wall up here.
Actually, it's against the city
Is that right?
regs. Yeah, all the neighbors talking about it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
You can't do that here.
Yeah, it's unusual. Looks weird in that sense.
But there are a lot of animals here in Marin County. I mean, it's not like I'm in some alien desert or something like that. I mean, there's sharp-shinned hawks and red tails and, gosh, hummingbirds. Of course, I have the garden too, but hummingbirds and the robins come in, swoop in every spring and, sprinkle the whole place with music
Yeah.
and song. And then there's gray fox, which actually slept in our living room during COVID. There's something about COVID that it seemed like animals. I read about even kangaroos, in Adelaide and going down the main street.
Yeah.
Well, it happened here too. Animals just sort of came out of the woodwork who were always here, but you didn't really see them.
Huh.
And they just felt, I don't know, it's like, oh, hi, I'm your neighbor. And we leave the door open in the summer, the back door on the deck, and we turn the light on, and there was a fox, 2 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, just sleeping, going, hey,
That's cool.
why'd you turn the light on? It's like, hey, they get up and then sort of go out and like,
Isn't that awesome?
okay, if you're going to bother us. I mean, it was so cute. It was so
Yeah.
charming, And now it is said, or it has been reported, there's about 120-pound black bear in this neighborhood.
Really?
Yeah, and not obviously, but not understandably, some people complained, out of fear, of course, because it was tearing up garbage cans, for looking for food, what else. And the county, to its everlasting credit, said, because people asked, what are you going to do? And they said, nothing. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Thank God. Just like, nothing. And so when I'm driving home or even walking and so forth, every so often you'll see a garbage can is just shredded. Not the can itself, but everything that's in it. You go, oh, she or he, I don't know what sex it is, but is here. Yeah. Anyway, it's a lovely place to live, obviously, and it also makes me reflect on the climate movement. We've been talking about that, but
Yeah.
as you know, the subtitle of the book I'm writing right now is Why the Climate Movement Failed, and which sounds like I'm negating the activity and actions and insights and that every one of your listeners has, and that's not what I'm saying, not at all. When I'm talking about the climate movement, I'm really talking about the narrative that is used and goes around and is repeated endlessly, both from on the news and social media and articles and NGOs and so forth, And there's a singularity about the narrative that is completely the opposite of what you and I are seeing right now. We're not seeing one thing that repeats itself. We're seeing extraordinary diversity, even if we don't know it or hear the bird sounds and identify them, or look in the streams and rivers, for the salmon come in. Our eyes are telling the truth, which is find one thing that's repetitious.
Yeah.
You can't. And it is also a narrative, but it is a narrative from whence both solutions and brilliance, insight emerge. This is where it comes from. It doesn't come from libraries and books. This is where it comes from, and all of history. And so when we think of the climate movement, what we're thinking about, what we hear is, fight, tackle, combat, climate change, climate crisis, all these different variations on there's a thing that we have to remedy, change, alter, fight, and in that process, unknowingly or without necessarily intentionally, we've either the natural world. We just other it. It's like something else out there somewhere, and we've got to do something about it, otherwise we're screwed. And that singularity is the opposite of what the living world tells us, teaches us. It's in our bodies too. You know, the extraordinary complexity and beauty of everything that's in nature is disembodied or distanced in the climate narrative. But people will say, oh, we've got to save nature, save the earth, and talk about the living world as nature. Again, as if, well, that's nature, and we have to really be careful and do something about it. Well, yes, of course, but then who are you? If that's nature, who are you? I mean, it's easy to say, oh, we are all nature, and so forth. Hello. But it's deeper than that. I think it's like there's a threshold, I think, possible for everyone. Easy for child because they've never seen the threshold,
Yeah.
or created the threshold, or been taught the threshold. But a threshold as adults that is about emergence, like that moment or time or experience where you realize this is me, not in an egoistic sense, but this is me as much as any other me I've ever imagined. And then you look at it with new eyes, And that is the source of real remediation, of transforming the world that we live in today, which is so destructive and so harmful and so degrading to animals, to birds, to nature, to ourselves, to children, to you name it. We are harming it, and
Even that word jumps out at me, the degrading bit, because then you got a hint at some of the language and some of the meaning. That what about the opposite of degrading?
Renewal,
What would that look like?
Revitalize, regenerate. Yeah, I mean, these words are coming into prominence right now, especially regenerate.
They are.
Yeah.
Yet you're seeing it still embody the same narrative to a large extent. So that's interesting. The language shifts, the words are sort of being gravitated to, but where is the meaning?
Well, where is the consciousness that uses the words? I mean, you think of Charlie Massey or the Haggertys and so forth and say, oh, you're regenerative farmers. Well, yeah. But the experience of being them, those farmers and many, many, many others, is not one of like, I'm going to wake up this morning and go regenerate. I mean, it's like, thank you for the praise, but well, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to look, see, feel, walk, touch, look at texture of the soil, look at who's showing up in terms of wildlife, the call of the reed warbler, was Charlie Massey's book title, which is so exquisite.
It wasn't I'm going to save the world, or how farmers can save the world even.
Right, yeah. Or how to make better soil.
Yes.
And out of that comes, obviously insight and practices. That is a relationship with, again, in this case, soil and everything that dwells upon and within and under it. So, again, the language keeps sort of slipping into a kind of simplicity or oversimplification, and then that's why I go back to the climate narrative. The climate narrative is a vast oversimplification of where we are and what to do about it, and out of that you get these every so often there's a car on the road.
Hey.
Hi. Of where we are, and I don't want to call it the problem, just like, where are we? Well, let's talk about that. That's a really good conversation to have. But the reason I called the title of the book is Upstream is like we're still trying to solve problems downstream. And they're problems for sure, and they need tending, they need remediation, all that sort of stuff, but we're not going upstream to cause. And if you don't look at cause, then the cures are simply symptomatic. And our whole medical system is about downstream, really. That's why the pharmaceutical business is huge. 20% of our economy is in the United States, is the medical pharmaceutical industry. It's over 20%. And, well, why is everybody sick? And there's that Bishop Tutu's homily, which he repeated many times. I kind of rephrase it slightly, but, we keep pulling people out of the river, and instead we should go upstream and find out who's throwing them in. And we're throwing ourselves in the river, by thinking and seeing the world the way we do.
Well, you had an acute representation of this, hey? The other day you told me about the $1.7 billion just being invested in... you can describe it.
Yeah, this is like...
But this is just indicative too, right? It's not the only one.
Yeah, I mean,
Where
this
the big
was
money's going.
$1.7 billion from Microsoft. They do have a lot of money. Invested in a company that's going to take food waste and literally poop, from sewage systems and liquefy it all and bury it 5,000 feet under the earth. That's that's a carbon solution. In other words, we're going to take this carbon that the living world is producing, photosynthesis, it's eating sunlight all day long, producing sugars in this carbon dioxide when they are break down and digested or whatever, and then getting rid of it. Like, well, can we go upstream and say, well, why do we need to sequester carbon in the first place? Why we need to do it actively? It happens automatically, of course.
Yeah.
But, it's because we're burning the lights out in terms of fossil fuels and coal, gas. But that's upstream. Like, well, why? And to what end? And we have to be realistic in the sense that, human beings, for as long as we have any history, record, understanding, anthropologically or otherwise, have always sought the most intense or concentrated form of energy at the lowest price.
Yes.
No exception. So we're doing that today,
Yes.
Coal, gas, and oil, right?
And that you can then extrapolate. Well, I extrapolate two things from that. I go, okay, we're not evil. This is just the way we've always been.
No, it's wired.
And it's why it's hard to change, yeah. And then B, it's why we are still growing emissions. It's why, even with renewables coming on, they're more additional than replacement. And is that just our fate then, Paul?
Well, so far. Yeah. That's what we're doing.
We're clearly capable of, well, at least in thought, transcending it. And in part, like there's part of humanity that is transcending it or attempting to. So it's in us.
Of course.
But not as a whole narrative, not as a larger narrative.
Well, that's also part of, I think, the delusion of the climate movement is that we're in an energy transition. That is used from the World Economic Forum down to the IEA, down to the World Bank, down to the Conference of the Parties, COP, etc. And you say, no, not really. And maybe we will at some point. But right now, as you just said, the incremental energy from solar panels and wind turbines has barely kept up with the growth of energy consumption. So we are using different energy to grow with, grow energy consumption, but we haven't touched the amount of energy we actually combust and consume on an annual basis. Haven't touched it. After 20 years of solar becoming more practical, more affordable, more available, and it is. No question about that. But even if tomorrow we could, transform all electrical use to solar and wind, that's 19% of the energy we use. What about the other 81%? That's coal, gas, and oil. And we're walking on a road. Glad we have it. How do you make this road with electricity? It's crushed rock It's asphalt, it's tar, slightly different, and it's laid down with big trucks, steamrolled, and made to last for decades. Well, okay, how do you do that with electricity? You can't. And so, there's a great enthusiasm about the conversion from, obviously fossil fuels to electric cars, EVs.
Yeah.
Understandably. They have a much lower footprint in terms of their daily consumption of energy, but they're also talking about there being, 3 billion cars in 2050, they being, the IEA and all these other economic organizations, project growth going to the future. Well, where are the cars going to drive? What roads are these? And the prediction is that by 2050, new highways will circle the Earth 600 times for our EVs.
This is and let alone where they're going to park.
Yeah.
This is the sort of thing that again has been talked about for decades.
Yeah.
Yet on we go, which seems to come back to that predisposition or just habit over a long, a couple 100,000 years of just taking what you can in energy availability. And we just haven't come up against this sort of conceptual need, these leaps that we're being asked to make now. We haven't had that before.
And again, that's the Tesla going by us. I'm not criticizing the conversion to EVs at all. What I'm saying is, what's the thinking here about the cause? And the cause is incredible industrial growth and consumption, fed by the largest extractive industry in the world, Google. It's taking every bit of information you deposit on the web that it can get its hands on and selling it to people who are advertising, creating social media, targeting you, making sure your life is dissatisfactory unless
Yes.
you get, some fast fashion from Shane in China, and look like
All that EV that just passed us.
yeah, the cool girls in school. You look like, frumpy. This is where we have to go, which is what's the anxiety, the insecurity, the vast disconnection that infiltrates our life that makes us almost reflexively go to consumption,
Yeah.
And again, I know, I've listened to all your podcasts. I know I'm not talking to your listeners, okay? And so I'm not trying to, hello? This is not a demonstration or critique or anything like that. No, I'm just looking at the whole, at the thing, and the so-called climate movement is what I'm using, and saying, we failed. We failed.
Yep. So this is the next bit of your subtitle. There's a second half to your subtitle.
Yeah, it's like where to go from here.
Yeah.
And I again think a lot of your listeners are going there, have gone there,
Yes.
or are there. So again, I want to make sure that they don't think I'm being sort of, a jerk.
How to suck eggs, as we say.
Yeah, how to suck eggs, yeah. Not at all, But I'm looking at the climate narrative as the climate establishment, and it's like the conference of the parties, it's like somehow we have came to believe that if we got all these important, quote, quote, people together from as many countries
Hold
as
that
possible.
Because I've just looked up
Yeah.
this expanse of grass leading into a house.
And the goats.
What I thought were sheep,
Oh, they're sheep.
but they're not real. They're statues on lawn that's been mowed. But there's opportunity in that, isn't there? What about real sheep? Because there's grass left.
So what do you think the sheep do?
Well, that's it. What are they doing? I think about this a lot, right? Because I see it a lot. The representations of our innate connection ongoing still with the living world.
Right.
And you maybe even longing for it, but certainly connection.
Yeah.
That you see manifest in ways like that, where we still want it to be present even though it's not.
Pristine.
It does say something.
Yeah.
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 But what if you did have animals on that grass, not just statues?
Which you should have.
Yeah, well, exactly. Why not?
We're in a fire-prone region.
All the more.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry to interrupt. We're going into another COP soon enough, aren't we?
Yeah, conference of the
Speaking of
party,
which.
and then you have all these important people and delegates in the blue zone. There's a green zone where all the NGOs are. You separate them.
Yes.
The activists, you over there.
Yes.
You know, the
Have fun.
people who have been elected and are not going to be re-elected if they actually do everything the COP wants to do are in this zone who kind of argue and fight and stay up all night, you know, trying to pass these resolutions that mean nothing. Because since COP15 in Paris and so forth, you know, nothing has really changed. The only two countries that have met the guidelines are Bhutan and Costa Rica, and that's because they have so many forests, not because they did anything special. But the point being is that the underlying belief, and this is part of the climate movement, is that it has to be solved top-down. We have to get the top together, or at least their representatives, and work this out. Well, work what out, if I may ask?
Yeah.
Is it energy source, you know? What are you burning? What are you consuming? Interesting. You're going to set targets? Great. Nothing wrong with the target. But who are you? You don't set targets for individuals. You don't set targets for countries. There's not a country in the world hardly that actually pays attention to the targets. They try to adhere to the goals, for sure, but domestic politics and votes, you know, which are usually quadrennial, if not every 2 years, you know, overrule anything that could come out of that because people want to be reelected. So you're taking people who want to be reelected to make decisions that are far-reaching and to adopt practices that most people, especially the 5 billion people who need more energy, frankly, you know, not less, to adopt. And so, and then we look forward to that well, I don't know if we look forward to it, but in other words, we think, well, what's going to happen, you know? Well, this one, you know, I mean, is going to be different. Well, it'll be different, all right, but it won't be intelligent in terms of how change arises. And it's not that change arises from the bottom. I'm not saying it doesn't come from the top, but there's not that idea that the top and the bottom is actually mistaken. Because where's, you know, in our forest here, where's the top? Where's the bottom? That's not how the living world functions, you know. And it's vastly interconnected, complex relationships that are beyond mysterious, of which we know very little. And intuitively, indigenous cultures who lived on the same land for hundreds and thousands of years had much better sense of what was going on in the living world than Western scientists because they lived there and they depended on knowing the living world,
Yes.
without which they would die.
Well, this is interesting because that was a very clear dynamic then. It's still the dynamic,
It still is.
but it's not clear to
Yeah,
us
right.
that we are so dependent on this ability to observe and know where you are, even in a body, as we were talking about the other day, let alone
Right.
on land.
Yeah.
And this comes to our conceptualization then, and narrative. This is why, well, it's always felt important to me, but I guess it's interesting looking at you saying even the people like that would listen to be on this podcast who are doing awesome stuff in
Yeah.
one respect or
No
another.
question. Yeah.
You know, one thing that's often been said is how much do we need to understand what we're doing, as long as it's a good thing. You know, but it sounds like you're saying actually we really do need to understand and to speak a language and a story or a set of stories that makes sense to the living world.
I mean, look, I'm a white boy, you know, with a genetic mutt, you know, from Europe. And it's not for me to start to explain or romanticize indigenous cultures and so forth, but the fact is we know certain things. Indigenous people knew where they lived.
They knew where the water was, was
They
what
knew-
it said to me.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
Never forgot where the water was, is what they said.
careful observation passed over generations and generations and generations, you know. And we don't know where we live. I mean, I say we being basically the dominant cultures in the world today, and that come out of Western science and industrialism and colonialization and settler mentality, and the extraordinary use of fossil fuels to power those cultures. Hi. I'm being recorded.
Hello. A podcast.
No,
I can cut it out or leave you in even.
But I would say, I mean, the following things. One is, we don't know where we live. We do not know, and I often say the most dangerous pronoun in the world is second person plural, because who's we? But I'm just saying.
First person plural, you mean?
Oh, well, first person plural. Sorry. I said, oh, yeah, you got it right. Cut.
Make me sound smart. Always do.
First person plural is...
Paul's greatest hits only.
Oh, my God. Okay, end of subject. But anyway.
Yeah, no, point though.
No, we don't know where we live. There's more life under the ground than above the ground, literally, in terms of biomass and living creatures. We don't know, I'm talking about land now, not the sea.
Yes.
We don't know what's underneath. And the car coming, I think. Oh no, it's the wind.
There's a deer.
Yeah. And the body, our body,
Look how they move.
is so amazing and complex.
Right on cue.
But most people don't know they're in one.
Yeah.
Because they don't treat it that way. What they eat, what they think, what they do, how they move, what they breathe. I mean, just check. Do you actually know you're in a body?
Yeah.
And do you know how it works? No, no one does. But we know certain things about it, certain principles, And if you want to be good to go tomorrow and next week and next year and towards the end of your life, let's pay attention. But those principles or those activities or those sensibilities are identical to what we need to become, be, express in order to address global heating and catastrophic loss of life on Earth. The continent, it's not like we're a different creature than blue whales or turtles. We're not. So again, where to go from here? And I hesitate to use the word solutions, but the activities that fully inform a vibrant culture that is renewing, restoring, revitalizing, regenerating are right in front of our nose. It's just not like, okay, I'm going to do this technology or this or that, I'll get that, or I'm going to bury, poop 5,000 feet under the ground. And I'm going to get paid for it because Microsoft needs these carbon credits, to justify this huge amount of energy they're using in their AI, artificial intelligence plants, It's like, what? I mean, it wasn't that long time ago, if you had sort of written that scenario out, somebody would have just laughed at you and said, that's ridiculous.
Well.
Buying poop for AI? Like,
Dare I say shit in, shit out? No, I won't say that.
I mean, it's like...
It's not that simple, but yes, point made.
Yeah. And there's many other, by the way, technologies, quote, and proposals to do direct air capture, in other words, capture carbon, like it's a thing, got that one.
Yeah.
When the whole Earth is using that verb, is capturing carbon every millisecond, look at what you're looking at. Extraordinary amounts of carbon.
You've just made me think of something funny.
What's that?
Remember the old Ghostbusters movie?
Yeah.
Catching the ghosts? It's almost, you could make that analogy to it, that trying to catch the ghost. It's not carbon, but we think it's carbon. We're trying to catch it.
I know, get it.
We're calling in the experts to catch it.
I know.
And we'll put it through the machine, and we'll be right, mate.
And that's what I'm saying. That's downstream thinking.
Yeah.
Downstream. And good luck. You'll be there forever until you die. Until the culture dies, until the civilization dies, until all that is harming perishes, because they will perish. And that realization, of course, is really growing and spreading, maybe more especially with younger people. Older people tend to sort of tuck in, I want to be safe and have enough money before I die.
Yes.
And I'm not seeing as much leadership as I am in people who are 20 and 30 years old and so forth. But it doesn't matter. Comparison is useless. The point being, the growth of understanding about what is truly the activity that human beings should engage in to reverse global heating and the catastrophic loss of biodiversity and water and many other things is here. And the analogy I use, I think I shared this with you, but when I was a lad and lived in the Sierras, I was a caretaker and didn't have a home actually, so I loved being a caretaker because I had a home. But we'd have, in the fall, this California, just like Australia, it's fire season, opposite time of the year, but in Australia it's fire season. Of course, why? It's dried out, there's no rain. Doesn't take much to start a fire.
Yep.
And there was all that dry brush and grass, and so it didn't take much for the fire to spread. Where I lived, there was very few fire people. Couldn't afford them. There's population was not dense, spread out all over the place, and so everybody knew, every young man and boy at that time, women weren't on the fire lines as they are now, but was expected to volunteer.
Yep.
Yeah, and then when you did, you were taught the basics. Don't fight the fire if it's upwind, things like that. I mean, it sounds stupid, but people, whatever. But after the fire, we would tamp it down with our boots. And the boots had metal soles, and the purpose was to make sure there was no manzanita embers underneath the ash. And manzanita is a hardwood, grows everywhere in California, and it will stay red hot for a long time. And so you had to make sure there was none there, and if it was, you had to get it out. And so, because the wind could come up and blow that ember into the next area where there hadn't been a fire. Okay. And then the fire was out. Mission accomplished. In the spring, then you would see, and same as Australia, luxuriant growth of grasses. And I think wildflowers too for Australia, but certainly for California, like just, poppies and lupin, and it's just like so beautiful. Okay. But there was a big fire here in Berkeley and Oakland, near the University of California. It was all eucalyptus, actually.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. Which people brought here in their infinite wisdom to make fence stakes that then twisted into little corkscrews. Do your homework first. And a really hot fire, as you know, given all the oils. And I think it destroyed 300 homes, and it was a big deal getting it out. I mean, nothing seemed to touch it. Helicopters. Everything.
When was this?
Oh gosh, this is about 35 years ago.
Okay.
30 years ago, yeah. Still remembered because it made such an indelible mark on that area, an impression. But it was near the University of California, and botanists were all over it in the spring, looking at what was growing. And they were identifying wildflowers that hadn't been seen in California for 50 or 100 years.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, and anyway, that's called fire-triggered succession. And there are seeds with carapaces that actually will just stay sealed until a certain amount of heat touches it, and then it'll break open and germinate. Okay. And so what I believe where we are today, as opposed to being sort of linear, we're screwing up, we are, things are getting worse. They are, but is that the fire and the fire-triggered succession are happening at the same time. So we're well aware of what I call the fire, this relentless assault on people, place, the living world, on the atmosphere, on water, on the seas, on the, check off the list. There's no place that isn't being assaulted and extracted and degraded and so forth. Okay. And we take in that news. We try to take it in small doses because it's overwhelming and it doesn't really change. It just changes in magnitude of place, But what I think the podcast and the people you've chosen are about the fire-triggered succession, which is that in the world today, there is an amazing bloom, if you will, of people and communities and farms and NGOs and volunteer organizations and more nouns, that are basically, like I say, revitalizing, restoring, renewing life on Earth. And they're not seen in contradistinction at all. They're ignored practically by all the press everybody reads because they're too small. Quote, I say they're too small. They're like, well, yeah, but that's nice. Or if there's a human interest thing there, we'll do that. Or maybe this famous movie star has a regenerative farm. Oh, great. But they won't really look at the diversity. Even look at the Haggertys, okay, they get the award, but look at their community. Look at how what they do extends out into communities, other places, and other people, and into universities, to studies, to students, to farmers who already are facing the same salinization issues, that they confronted, in Western Australia. It just goes on and on and on. You can't really map it. You can't see where the boundaries are from who they are, what they do, and what their impact is. But that's true for literally 1 million organizations on Earth today.
Yeah. I want to come back to that because you're a man who can say, literally, because of Blessed Unrest that was written 18 years ago. And we were talking the other day about this book being a form of Blessed Unrest, a redux. But let's come back to it. But just to hold that fire analogy for a while longer, because when we talked about that, I mentioned that Bruce Pascoe's farm back in Australia, the author of Dark Emu, for those who haven't sort of followed the story.
Great book, by the way.
Great book, and really changed Australia. And really put him in the gun, by the way, too, of people who were threatened by this sort of story coming to light. So there are layers to that story for those who don't know. But he found on his farm, after the Black Summer fires, extraordinary. Again, for those who don't know, that was upwards of 60 million acres. I think it was 3 billion animals dead. Extraordinary damage, obviously. Is essentially a whole flank of Australia up in flames. That's 5 years ago now. And out of that, on his land, they, partly because the canopy was gone and partly because of the heat and intensity of the fire, that there too was germination, but in this case, of ancient plants that they remember in story, but only in story. They'd been gone for so long. They had germinated again. So that not only is your analogy pertinent, but that's with the most intense fire. And that hits me. It's like, okay, well, keep in mind, it's almost, no matter how intense things get, you just don't know what it will germinate.
Exactly. It feels ironic or strange to say that our ignorance of the living world and how to live upon it and with it is actually precipitating its eventual restoration. It's like, no, you're destroying the place. And you're doing it ignorantly. And it's not like you want to, you're just doing it, But the damage, which is sort of heart-rending, and I'm putting aside children for a minute and women and people, putting that aside, I'm not taking that. That's inexcusable, in my opinion, period, always, ever. But in terms of, the so-called natural world, there's a living world, we're creating the conditions for a massive renewal, regeneration, revitalization of the world. And the only thing human beings can do is they cannot regenerate the world. They can't restore.
That's the point.
They create the conditions.
Yes.
Or the conditions for its demise. That's what we can do. We create the conditions, and it's how we talk, it's how we relate to each other, it's how we live, it's what we choose, it's what we honor. These are things that are deeply, I think, within the human character. Just, no matter what you read and the divisiveness and the stupidity and the proto-fascism that's arising, the fact is, and I think all great religions recognize that within human beings is this extraordinary beauty of character, of heart. And people ask me, like, don't you feel grief? Aren't you grieving? And I say, oh yeah. Oh yeah. But what is grief? Loss. Sense of loss. Person, place, any number of things. But grief can only arise from love. If you didn't love something, you're certainly not going to grieve its passing. And love originates in the heart. That's where it comes from. And the heart is the organ in human beings that always tells the truth. So grief actually is an opening to
a deeper truth.
Yeah, yeah, which is within you, not somebody's book or me or so on. No, it's within you. And that's why where to go from here? Here. I mean, I'm pointing to my heart. Yeah, where to go from here? But then what the book is trying to do is give examples and stories and narrative, about how that's being expressed in the world, in ways that are very different than, the litany of climate solutions. Look, I did Drawdown. I know what solutionism is. But in a deeper sense, the arising of human beings who may well be forgotten, may never be honored, but who are actually the seeds of new life on earth.
When we're talking about blessed unrest and this redux version, we sort of both have observed you in a very direct way from blessed unrest, having literally researched the proliferation of the movement in broad terms, if you like, and in those 18 or so years since, you've observed an ongoing proliferation, which I feel like I'm witnessing too. And I said to you, I've questioned hard, are you really seeing that? Is this true, or is it my little slice of reality? But it's coming up so far beyond my purview, again and again and again and again and again. And that's as my knowledge and that purview broadens and increases, right? So, but it's like way out in front of it and around it and above it. And so this proliferation continues. And yeah, you felt by orders of magnitude, potentially. And that's interesting too, isn't it? That it seems to bear some kind of evidence to that germination out of the intensity of the fire. And when you can despair at the proto-fascist governments and so forth coming in around the world, as many do, that there's still this thing growing on the ground, if you like.
And we can ask ourselves, and Bruce, I think, would be the first to agree, there's rejuvenation or regeneration that's happened that he doesn't know how to recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, fellas.
Hey.
In other words, he's only been here for 80 years, I forget, and only, and he's only had his experiences, and he's brilliant. But we might not even recognize this emergence completely because we have our own beliefs about what is or isn't or what's going on and so forth. I just feel like, there's something happening that is we can't see.
Oh yeah, I'm examining myself as you speak for the form of conceit that might have expected me to be able to answer the question, am I to judge there is in fact a regeneration happening or not?
Yeah.
There's a form of conceit even in that.
Yeah.
To think of everything you're not seeing.
Yeah.
And wondrously so type thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Paul, when I think about your trajectory through the books you've written, and of course it's far from all you've done is the writing, but just taking those books as sort of snapshots in time and the trajectory of your life in that way, that here you are, almost 80 yourself, and still inspired to do it, to write. And in a sense, despite the fact that, as the first part of your subtitle, the climate movement's failed, still motivated to write. So there's something in you, there's a spark in you out of the fire. And I know you felt the fire, you briefly alluded to it before.
Yeah.
You felt that really deeply. And in fact, you say the work, yeah, it does, it comes out of that. even just writing books, hard. It comes out of the fire. But I'm really curious about that as someone who's, lived a brilliant long life, why there does feel like there's something left to say that burns so strongly that you still write a book about what you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think its origins are a little different. The origins are curiosity, as opposed to like seeing an arc of my oeuvre, over the years and so forth. To me, each of them arose from curiosity. Like, I wonder, how does this work, or how could this work better? Just different questions. But that arose from childhood, where, as I've mentioned to you, like, I lived in a home that wasn't safe at all. I mean, it was a shit show. And so I went outside whenever I could. And when I went outside, it was a completely different world, because inside I could identify, threats, of course, be my parents, but, everything, the plug, the light switch, the refrigerator, all those kind of things. You can master a house if you're 2-3 years old in 30 minutes or less. But outside, I had no idea what I was hearing, seeing, and just like you can spend a lifetime actually trying to figure that out, as a good scientist even. But so for me, it arose then, which is like, where do I live? What's going on? What's happening? Just why, and what, and so that is still there. I am not a botanist. I am, I am not, good at identifying birds. I was part of National Audubon Society on the board. I was like the worst birder on the board. I am sure. And the Board of Conservation International, and we had some of the best naturalists in the world that we worked with, and so forth. So I've been alongside those whose skills in this area are just incredible. And for me, it's always trying to find the story. And the story is the narrative, that is prevalent or is in some ways taken for granted. But for me, in my books, I'm trying to tell stories. And what I learned is that for a story to have meaning and impact, it has to have 2 feet on the ground. And that usually is science. There may be other. And if it's not standing on the ground, the story is just blah, blah. I'm sorry. But it's like, and there's lots of blah, blah around right now. And that's for sure. And so always... The pleasure of writing is actually, discovery, and the realization that there's just some brilliant people out there and doing amazing things, And so, as opposed to what I often do in the morning, which is to sort of do a scan of the world's zeitgeist. And I'll read The Guardian, I'll read The Post, I'll read The Times, I'll read Financial Times, and other things. And scanning, like, what does the world think it's thinking? Or what are people hearing, seeing, reading that is altering their sense of, where we are, what's happening, and so forth. And I want to write to the zeitgeist, but at the same time, I do that in the morning. If I did that at night, I wouldn't sleep, because the news is so despicable. Children in Gaza right now, it's just like unimaginable at this time in human history that one country would do that to children. I mean, just like, it's just mind-boggling. So it's always, so I don't want to exclude that. It's not my job to write about that conflict. That's not the subject of my book. But it's really important that awareness of it and my feelings of just remembering as a child what it was like to be hungry, what it was like to be
unsafe.
Unsafe. That's a nice way to put it. Yep. Resonates, not to the degree those children are being harmed, not at all. But so it gives dimensionality to the stories, and most of the stories are really about heart and brilliance and science and discovery, But what are the discoveries? The discoveries are how things are connected. Western science has been disconnecting things, since the Enlightenment, and saying this is a this and that's a that, and those aren't the same things. You thought they were. They're not. Okay, and we're going to name them. And so, to this day, we have 350,000 names for different chemicals. Good to know. And so, what we're seeing today in the sciences, in quote marks, because I think there's many scientists in the world today that don't have degrees, is not how things are distinct and separate and have names, but how the world is connected in such vast ways that it's unimaginable. And in that, I think that's what we're seeing now is an awareness of what we don't know, as opposed to what we do. Because we were taught, we know this, we know this, we know this, we know this. Here's a book, it's 2.5 inches thick, read it. I mean, there'll be a test at the end of this.
Yeah.
And we had to memorize and make those distinctions and know what is not a which and so forth. And what I feel like with Western and indigenous knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge, are starting to meld and merge and interact in such a way with great respect to an understanding of what is unknown, what we don't know, what we never thought could be the way the world, quote, quote, works. We will never know for sure, of course. But when Zoe Slanger writes a book, or Monica Galliano, also, that plants speak, communicate, and they're, of course, laughed at by botanists, not Zoe so much, because she's just a journalist, but certainly Monica, then all of a sudden the anthropological work that has been done over the years, and been dismissive of indigenous people who said, oh, why do you use this? Why do you do that? The plant told me. And they're going, yeah, right. The plant did tell him. It's like, oh, wait a minute, they're absolutely truth tellers. And it just didn't fit within our bounds, of analysis and reason. So that's an opening that's happening all around the world. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But that's, why am I writing a book? Because that's what I get to swim in.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, not my discoveries.
Speaking of the zeitgeist, we're at a time in the States that's really interesting on a number of levels, different since when we were together walking these paths 15 months ago. And we've got an administration that is currently looks like will succeed in getting food dyes out of foods to a large extent, maybe some other things like it. Yet the cuts to the EPA and the USDA and so forth, and the watchdogs on chemicals in our food system and so forth, seem to be a much grander scale. So I know there's all sorts of fractures happening with MAGA and MAHA and across all these lines. It's not playing out in any kind of clear fashion, let's say. It's interesting to have listened to people all over this country and to be observing this that's happening now and thinking, you mentioned Big Pharma before. What seems to be true is that the way things were, maybe the fire wasn't intense enough if I drawn the analogy before, but it wasn't gonna shift those big locks. And while this obviously isn't addressing it either, it is breaking things apart, or let's use the fire analogy, it is burning things. And it makes me wonder how you feel about all that's playing out right now in the context of what we've been talking about. How are you seeing things?
Well, like in terms of MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, headed up by Robert Kennedy Jr., and taking out synthetic dyes of food as like that's some victory. It's been taken out of foods that never should be made in the first place.
Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? There's a bigger fish in a sense.
Exactly. In other words, M&Ms and candies,
Fruit Loops.
Just Fruit Loops and cereals, breakfast cereals, and all that sort of stuff. All these things are extremely damaging to our children or to anybody who eats them. And we're seeing taking the synthetic dyes out as some sort of victory. It's not even a Pyrrhic victory. it's a delusion. And even then, the companies who make these ultra-processed foods are fighting it. I'm trying to prohibit that prohibition, trying to stop it, using their political power. So I see these bones that were tossed to... I knew a lot of people who absolutely would have voted, probably did vote for Biden, the Democrats, who voted for Trump because of Robert Kennedy.
Yeah.
And, make America healthy again, and this and that and so forth, So I don't know what they were thinking, but that's their opinion, that's their problem. But, so, I mean, what we're seeing is a Hitler's playbook, and 2025 understood it very well, and there's a lawyer named Roy Cohn, who was Trump's teacher and who knew the playbook very well. And flooding the zone is one of the things you do.
Yes, this was a film too that depicted this tutelage, didn't it, before the election last year?
Yeah. And, which is so many things come at you that you can't handle them all, and they don't make sense, or they all don't make sense, but it's the same thing. So we're in, I don't know where we are. I don't know what's going to happen, I don't know where it's going to emerge. I mean, Trump has sort of seized the reins of executive power that flies in the face of balance of power, the United States initiated in 1776, the different forms of governance, executive, legislative, and judicial. And so there was a check and balance, some power, and he's just smashed it. And so it very well could be that there won't be any more elections, or won't be midterm elections, or the next presidential elections, even though in terms of statutes, he cannot run again. Mm-hmm. But he obviously doesn't care about a precedent or meets and bounds. So I just don't know what's going to happen in this country.
Yeah.
I really was thrilled to see that you didn't fall for it in Australia.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same playbook, maybe not as articulately expressed. And I think other countries are pushing back now. You're seeing the UK, I mean, Farage and the Reform Party making a Trump go, if you will, at the polity there. I don't think the UK is going to go for that. They did Brexit. That was stupid. Same people. So I don't know, whatever happens is going to be... I don't think electing a Democrat in 3 years as the president is going to make a significant change. I wish I could say otherwise, because I haven't seen that Democrat, and I haven't seen the Democratic Party that doesn't have its head up its whatever. I mean, it's a gerontocracy. There was a vote on the decision. This is just a technical term about the House having to pass something that was passed in the Senate, a $9 billion decision, and 3 members, Democratic members, didn't show up because they're so old and they couldn't get there. So it's a gerontocracy, rinse and repeat. It's been a really weak party, in terms of leadership and in terms of responding to what people really want,
Yeah.
And so, you always deserve what you get. The United States deserves Trump.
I saw signs around the country of what we've seen in Australia, where communities decided they deserved something else and made it happen outside the two major... Well, to some extent now inside the Democrat equivalent party as well, but certainly outside the two major parties originally with the independents that were getting elected, and more were elected just in the election a few months ago. And I saw a bit of that around the States as well.
What did you see?
Younger people in particular organising and training people to run and to support those who would run.
Yeah.
In whatever, in a party or as independents, so that you reform the parties as well to get the whole system being more representative and not the gerontocracy as well. And And, a bunch of them won.
Yeah.
Even in those prevailing winds that
Yeah.
you've described.
Yeah. No, I see that.
At lower level, down ballot.
Yeah, no, it's like fire-triggered succession, I mean,
Yes.
if you're 2024 and you're going, what are you people thinking? And that's to both parties, not just to
That's right.
The Republicans. And like, I'm an OBGYN, I'm a this, I'm a nurse, I'm a school teacher, I'm a whatever, and I'm going to run.
Yeah.
Yeah, against this incumbent who's been reelected, 17 times
Yes, that's right.
every 2 years, and
That's right.
and shows up at the county fair and stuff like that. But so there is that arising, and I think that is certainly caused by the outrageousness, of what's happening. The playbook Trump got for us in 2025 too. I mean, there's a document, and everybody said, "Oh, look at this, he's using this," and he said, "Oh, I've never seen it before, I've never read it,"
Yeah.
It's absolutely by the book,
Yeah.
and the author of the book is part of the administration.
Yeah.
It was a very clear description of how to wield the executive branch in such a way that it had powers it never knew about or could exercise or would exercise or never thought to be exercised by the president. And so, yeah, it's here. And that playbook applies to other countries as well. I mean, different types of governing institutions, but the basic techniques are there.
Yeah. It does. From the Australian experience, it does make me wonder, conditions on the ground. If they change enough, if communities come together enough, listened enough, it can take the sails, the wind out of the sails of the ones who would divide and...
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the outrageousness of the activities are definitely waking people up.
Yeah.
To like, what? And that in the United States, I don't see, people usually vote their pocketbooks here for every presidential election. Am I better off
That
or
was
worse?
said in Australia too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's sort of
They don't-
shifted. So it's,
They don't vote issues. They vote money. Yeah. So who's to say where the nation will be then?
So, the other thing I mentioned to you the other day is just really sitting in me. I mentioned that there are a bunch of podcasts, and I might write a piece on it, like the podcast that I discovered in going across the country that really stood out.
Mm-hmm.
And that one of them was Dolly Parton's America.
Yeah.
And you'd heard of it, but you'd not listened to it.
Definitely.
And we listened, or we're halfway through the series right now, and we just listened to episode 5. It's already moved me extraordinarily. And episode 5, wow. Because essentially Dolly was asked, well, her sister even came out and said, Dolly should be speaking up. And so the producers of this podcast were saying to her, what's your thinking? Where do you stand? You're seen as this great unifying figure. You sort of don't get up and endorse one candidate or another. And clearly people love you across the political spectrum. But some would argue, like your sister now, that in this time you should be speaking out.
Yeah.
And the producer asked a really astute question. She said, in the context of people hurting with this administration, do you ever think, am I hurting more people by not saying something now?
What did she say to that?
Yeah, I was on tenterhooks. It's a really good question. And she said, she referred to, and sort of this had been the backdrop of it, was it the Emmys a bunch of years ago, 2017, Trump's first term, when they got together the crew, because they were each winning Emmys for one thing or another. So they got together Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin and Dolly Parton for the first time since 9 to 5 was filmed, 35 years prior or whatever.
Wow.
So it was this extraordinary occasion. They're on stage. Jane Fonda tees off because there's this famous line in the film that we won't stand for your bigoted, hypocritic, sexist, whatever brilliant line there was in 9 to 5. I can't remember off the top of my head. And she said, and we're still not standing for your chauvinistic, bigoted, and she's aiming it at Trump. And Dolly, depends how you see it, but diffused the situation. She made a boob joke and moved on and got the crowd laughing. And she said, I can always turn to the boob joke. But then she said, you know what I really wanted to say? I wanted to say, let's pray for the president.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought, I'll get slammed for that too, so boob joke it is.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's why she's loved universally.
Mm-hmm.
She's not out to get anyone.
Right, right.
And in a way, what more powerful thing is there to say or do?
That came up for me in a different way. I did a 3-month retreat. It wasn't really a retreat, it was caretaking of a empty Buddhist refuge center. And it was way off in the wilderness, and there was no electricity, no radio, no phone, no mail, no nothing. You're cut off. So I was in silence for 3 months.
Wow.
No one to talk to. It was easy to be in silence. And but when I came back to Taos, New Mexico, in the truck, and I went to natural food store first thing, starving, and it was just like a cacophony. Everybody's talking, I thought, oh my God, like it's amazing. People just talk and talk and talk and talk. It's like, of course, but if for 3 months, if you're in silence, it is really quite an unusual experience. And these 2 women walked by, and they had I think a small child, girl, and the mother was saying, "Oh, she is such a bitch. She was like criticizing somebody else. What I noticed was that the little girl was listening and hearing this, and my first was to criticize the mother. Say you shouldn't talk. In my mind it's going that way.
Yes.
And then I listened more carefully, or recounted what I had heard more carefully, and I realized that woman was talking about herself. If you're saying she is such a bitch, who are you talking about? There's something in you, some pain, something, and then I realized, you can disagree with me, but everybody, whatever we say is about us. It's who we are. That just comes out, doesn't matter. It's you. And I thought about that with Trump. He's talking about himself. And from a Buddhist perspective, he lives in a Vajra hell. There's 7 levels of hell. He lives in one of the very, very most painful, worst ones. But out of that came a sense of compassion, because everything you hear him say, he may smile, he may look crowing, glamorous, maybe, it doesn't matter. He is suffering. Every sentence, every post on Truth Social, everything is his mind. He lives in that mind. That's the hell realm. That's where he lives.
Nothing to envy.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to put up with it and not try to change things. But I'm just saying that it actually elicited compassion for that human being. Like, why? Who would want to be born that person in this lifetime and spend a lifetime living there? So I agree with Dolly.
Yeah. And then conversely, when you're Dolly, and that's what comes out of your mouth, it's like she really has attained something. Mm-hmm. Because what the show also pointed out is that her songs have never shirked these sorts of issues from 9 to 5 and on and prior.
Right.
About minorities, women, loving a country as a whole. What she might have to say, she is saying as well. She's clearly doing it in such a way that reaches everybody, even though she's saying it in song form. And then she says that, or would have said that, and said that in this moment on that podcast. I agree with that
I think everybody's a teacher to oneself, but I will say that I do think that people who call themselves teachers and say, I'm a teacher, are less interesting to me than people who don't know they're the teacher.
Right on. That's it.
Yeah.
And even then as a, celebrity, she wasn't grandstanding.
Yeah.
She didn't say what she wanted to say.
Yeah, she's one of our teachers.
Yeah. Well, Paul.
Thank you. Yeah.
We full circled back to your house.
Come back again.
100%. Gonna miss you, mate. It's been magnificent to come back and be with you again.
It's amazing that you know more about this country than I do. Far more. You've been to more places. You've experienced more people, communities, events. I am astonished at what you guys have done in 15 months and 25,000 miles, in your Honda. It is unfathomably extraordinary in terms of an accomplishment, and you guys seem bright and perky and ready to go, and so it didn't take anything out of you, but it sure must have been a learning experience.
Oh,
the
well,
likes
that's-
of which you couldn't have devised a better learning experience. I wish I had yours.
I've got your words in my mind right now of not being the teacher. Yeah, we learned in spades, and mate, right back at you. Nearly 80 years so far.
Yeah.
What a life, what a journey. I'm learning from you. Thanks a lot for having a little walk and talk with me.
Yeah, just this year's the first time I realized, next decade is in the 80s, huh? But
Crept up on
it doesn't creep up on me because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It has no meaning. The meaning is what you do, what your mind, your life, what you give, what you do, what you love. Your body, of course, and my body, is remarkably unscathed yet by disease and so forth. And so I just feel like I'm so fortunate, and I don't think of it as like, oh, well, now you're 80, you're like, or next year, No, I'm not. I'm just here.
Yeah.
Doing the best I can.
Looking into around the next quarter.
Yeah.
On you, mate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was Paul Hawken, at home among the redwoods, with great thanks to you generous paid subscribers for making it possible. Special thanks this week from AJ to SJ, new paid subscriber doing great work of his own in Japan, with some common ground too, with Aussie legend Loonig and an old favourite film, Baghdad Cafe. Thanks too to Paul Verno and Nikki Thompson for being paid subscribers for 3 years now. I can't tell you how grateful I am for you sticking with me over those years. We'd love you to join us if you can, get some exclusive stuff like discounts to a series of upcoming events, and help keep the show going by heading to the website or the show notes and following the prompts. The music you're hearing is Regeneration by Amelia Barden. My name's Anthony James. Thanks for listening.